All right, today's video, we are talking about carving wax, and this one is mostly centered around making wax rings, but there'll be a little bit about wax that is not meant to be a ring. Okay, let's start with just a regular wax blank here. And these guys, they are meant for rings that have kind of some asymmetry to them. Certainly not something that's perfectly round. You want to use these for something that might be flat across the top. These are cut by the teacher, myself, and they come in packages like this, which we'll find in the supply toolbox. And if we run out, let me know. And there are lots of different kinds of wax. These are for rings. This is another, more of a tube that just haven't been cut up yet. Also for a ring. Lathe wax. Lathe wax, this is demonstrated in a previous video on my channel, and you're welcome to check that out. If you're one of my students, it will be linked in the assignment description in Canvas, and you can check it out there. It's a great tutorial on how to cut a ring blank using the lathe. But you want to find a piece of wax that fits your project best. Here's a piece of sheet wax. We have different thicknesses. This is a thinner piece. We have all the way up to, I believe, 1 inch thick, which is pretty large. Okay. First step, if you're making a ring and you want to use any number of wax, whether it's a blank like this or a blank like this, the steps are the same. First step, you want to find the reamer. This reamer, we have 2 of them currently. Try not to drop it, right? So this has the cutting edge in it, and of course it doesn't want to open. Here we go. Now there's 2 little bits in here. This one is designed to cut the inside of the ring to a specific size. This we're not going to use. Every once in a while I need it, that's why we keep it. But this blade right here, and yes, it will cut you, is what we're looking for. To set this up, you make sure that this is completely unthreaded. If we tighten it too much, you can see that it starts to encroach in that opening there. We want that to be wide open. Take the blade and you slide it in here like that, and make sure that the cutting edge is vertical. You can see that right there. And make sure it's centered. Tighten it down, just snug. You don't want to put too much leverage on here because these can bend. Now, this particular tool and these ring wax blanks are made by the same company, and they are designed for this to fit inside here, and it's meant to be snug. Okay, if you can't get the reamer into the ring blank, then what you need to do is you need to get a piece of 320 grit sandpaper or thereabouts, and you're going to sand the inside of this until this fits. Now I had to sand for probably 10 minutes to get this to work. You don't want there to be any slop. You want that to be really square, and you want this to be able to turn. And what this is going to do is this is going to, as I get to close to the wax, as I turn this, you'll be able to see. I'll just make one pass there, and I'll remove the reamer. See how tight it is. Right here, you can see where the reamer has shaved off this side, and it hasn't cut this side yet. What we're doing is we are milling down one side of this so that it is 90 degrees perpendicular to the center axis of the ring. We want the sides of the ring to be lined up with the middle. You don't want a lopsided ring. You don't want a ring that's, this end is over here and this end is down here. It's just not good jewelry. So we work on this, and you do this just until you're milling down the surface all the way across the ring. Okay, and it just takes a few passes, And if you need some help with this, let me know. I'm happy to. If it's a little too hard, you need to do a little more sanding. Okay, and you'll make a little bit of a mess. Please put it in the garbage can. Okay. I'm going to show you this in real time so that you get a feel for what kind of time it should take you. Just like that, remove the reamer. And that whole surface, except for that little corner, which I'm not worried about, is all milled down. It's nice and smooth. We're ready for the next step. Now we need to figure out the right ring size, because definitely that is not going to work for me. All right, this tool right here is also a reamer. It is meant to bore out the inside of the ring size. Now, this used to have a bunch of labels right here of different ring sizes. I have found that they are not trustworthy. This needs to be checked with an actual ring mandrel because we want to get these rings the right size. So you've got to go back and forth. Now my ring size is a 9.5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert this and I'm going to start to go around and around. Now, I want you to notice something. I didn't jam it into the ring and then start turning. What happens, I'm going to draw you a picture. If we have a ring, and I grab a pencil, here's the inside of your ring. And if you take this that has a sharp edge here, and yes, it will cut you, so please respect it. If I put pressure in here, that blade will cut in here, and then I start twisting. And what I get is this big edge right here. That's not something anybody wants up against their finger. So when it's time to bore out your ring, what you do is you start turning this before it makes contact with the wax. And once it does, you can just hold on to the sides and bore this out. I'm going to go a little ways. Now this is tapered, so I want to flip my wax around and do the other side. Now let's see where we're at. Okay, so we are at about, let's see, almost a 7, about a 7. So we're kind of visualizing the center of the wax. And there you can see is the number 7, where we're almost there to a 7. I've got to go a little ways further to get to my 9.5. Now, while I'm doing this, something that you need to be aware of, maybe you noticed this blank and this blank are 2 different sizes. So if you have a larger finger, you need to get this one. If you are a smaller individual, then this one will fit you. I don't want you to use a big one. If you've got small fingers, use the piece of wax that's the smallest piece possible, but also big enough. And I'm happy to help you with that if you need it. We're looking at width and we're looking at thickness of the band. We don't want to just start boring this and have not enough of your band here to have a ring. Okay, that band needs to be anywhere from 2 to 3 millimeters thick. So, here we go. Keep working. Do both sides. The other side lightly, like that. Let's see where we're at. Okay, we've made it down to about an 8 1/4. Okay, we're getting closer. And goes faster than you might think, so just be careful. Okay, we're about to, I don't know, 8 1/4, 8 1/2, somewhere in there. Clean up the mess, and I think we'll leave it right there. We're not going to make it the exact size just to save some time. The next step is we need to trim the width. So now we have a face that we can work with. We've got our ring size, and now we need to worry about the thickness of the band itself. So what we do So you need to grab a divider and a ruler. Let's say that I want to have a band that's 7 millimeters wide. So I'll take my divider and I will mark this just a whisper above my desired width, because we want to leave some room to sand and make it super clean. So I've got my measurement here, and from this edge, all I need to do is go around the whole ring. If we can see this, I'm just scribing a line all the way around. Just like that. So you can see right here, got that line scribed all the way around. Now I would go to my bench pin and I would grab the rough cut file. Rough cut files, they are the ones that are tapered towards the end. They're marked in red. In our classroom, red indicates for wax. We have a more rough side and a more rough side and a less rough side. I want to take this and I'm going to use the very aggressive side, put it up against my bench pin, and I'm going to file this down. All right. Once I get that done, I want to figure out the width of my band. I'm going to mark this at 3 millimeters, and that way I have room to work. So you crank this down. All I'm doing here with the ruler is I'm putting it in one of the grooves of a whole number and then just twisting the adjustment down until I get to where I'm at. And I'm leaving, so 3 millimeters is plenty for what I like to do. I just want to mark this all the way around. Now I can do this on either side. I've only milled the one side down flat, but this is going to work just fine, like this. Now I know how much to take from the outside. Again, rough cut file, and shape this down. Now I chose this flat surface here to demonstrate this. This is not something that I would say to carve down to just get a round piece. That's not what we're doing here. So if you want to have a flat surface on the top, maybe you need to figure out next, well, you do need to figure out next, how thick from the inside of the ring that's up against your finger to the top of the band itself, or top of the top here real quick. So I would say that we want that to be a little bit thicker, so let's say 4 millimeters. Now I need to do a little math, because, well, you need to do a little math, or you can just mark it like this, then adjust your divider so that it lines up with the top, and scribe a line straight across. And you go all the way around just like this. And definitely go all the way around, because you want to have a guide all the way around. So then what you can do is either take a file or go over to the disc cutter or the disc sander and take the majority of that off. But you always want to make sure that you are not using too aggressive a cut on power tools. You don't want to take too much off. Always rotate it around and make sure you get that down. Basically, this is how I teach students how to lay out a ring. Using a divider, making sure that you do the same subtraction on one side to the other from the factory edge will ensure that any flat spot that maybe you have designed in this ring would work. Now, I don't want everyone to just use this sort of template for their ring. I want you all to have an original design, and let's find a piece of wax and a way to manipulate your wax for your design. Don't just copy this. This is just a simple way to basically get the ring size down, get the width down. Maybe if this is your ring and it's this wide, okay, so let's grab this other piece. Say this is the size of the width you want, but on the top you want it to be this wide, but on the bottom you want it to be skinnier. Well, then you would want to take the same amount off of each side of the bottom here, and you say, I want to scribe that down, and I want to scribe this down, and then you know how much to take off of the sides, and then you can taper this to the edge here. Okay, so be aware of those kind of things. Now, once you have your wax down to the size you need, then you can start thinking about different options, simple options for decorating the outside. Now you can, depending on your patience and your confidence in carving things, carving can be tricky. We have carving tools. I want to show you these. These are awesome. These are made by Wolf Carving Tools. They're expensive, just like lots of things in our shop. They are extremely sharp. They even tell you, see, look at that. Some of these tools are wicked sharp, and they're not lying. These tools are, between the two of them, I think I paid close to $300. And I want you to think just like many things in the classroom. A lot of students have used these, and they took care of them so you could use them. Please take care of them now for the students that are coming after you. Anyway, these are awesome to carve with, and there's some scrap wax in the classroom that you can practice on. Okay, now I've attached these little loops to these tools because what I have had over time, these lids get they're a little loose, and if you were to pick them up from the lid, then the rest of this falls out from under and they end up all over the floor, and I've had to fix some of these tools that might have gotten bent or become dull from dropping them. So you want to grab them by the handle and the lid, something that makes it so that you, when you're traveling back to your desk, that you keep a hold of these. So just help me with that. Another thing that I wanted to let you know of is we have wax saw blades. Now these saw blades are pretty cool. If you can see that, they are twisted, and that means they can go in any direction. They're extraordinarily aggressive towards wax. They do not work at all for metal, and these last a really long time. I've had this blade literally for years. You put it in your saw blade, your saw frame, just the same as any other saw blade, and you can cut all sorts of stuff in any direction. Lastly, when you're working with your wax files or metal files for that matter, they can get full of debris in the teeth. And to do this, I'm going to show you, I'll do some filing here, and you'll see that we've accumulated some wax. And as you go, that's going to need to be cleaned out. So you grab one of these file cleaners. This is awesome. Drag it across, and it cleans out all the teeth, and you're ready to go again. A lot of times when you're filing with metal files, these can really get gummed up and slow your progress. Here's one last bit of advice. This is huge. When you're tempted to just say, I'll just fix it when it's metal, understand this. It is 10 times easier to manipulate wax than it is metal, and it is extraordinarily frustrating when your wax is not how you want it to be. So be patient with the wax, check it and recheck it, sand, file, not in that order of course, file, then sand, and make it the way that you want it to be. Get it as smooth as possible. The more you do in the wax, the faster your cleanup goes when it's metal. Our mold material, it's called Investment. Our Investment picks up details like you wouldn't believe. I have had somebody leave a heavy fingerprint on a well-polished piece of wax, not polished like with a buffer, but sanded, and it picked up the fingerprint, which is pretty cool. So any little scratch, any tool mark, if you're worried about it, have me check it, and we'll make it as good as possible. Anyway, happy carving of the wax, and let's make something cool.